So I just wanted to introduce myself first of all. I'm Karen Elvin, and I'm really honored to be here this year at Coleman Hill. You'll find out what a special place this is, like Dr. Levy said, that it really is. And so my assistant principal just stepped out for a minute, Janine Marie DeFalco, and she's an integral part of every day here at Coleman Hill as well. Dr. Lambia, you just met, and we also have Mr. Kelly Siebert, who's our
Assistant Superintendent for
thank
Business,
you. And
also called the business official.
yes, and so they're going to present some of the budget plan with you today. The other part of today was to meet the incoming principal here. Unfortunately, she had a family emergency. She couldn't be here today. I'm sure you'll have plenty of opportunities to meet her, along the way. But she is just a really wonderful leader. And she's, as you know, because your daughter's over at Wampus, she's coming over from Wampus to be here, which is where she was originally. So she's very familiar with staff and the way things work here. And she just has some wonderful ideas, and I think they're going to be in wonderful hands. So I just introduced you.
Sorry,
right here.
I was telling the parent outside.
But that's so typical of Janine because she's all over the place. So thank you. So I'll just turn it over to you.
All right,
Thank you
great.
so much.
As I was introducing myself, welcome. I'm Jen Lamia, the superintendent. I have been in Byram Hills since I was 21 years old, and I'm now 54. I'm saying this on public television. That's when you know, what's the difference, right? Whatever. But I've been in this district for a long time and invested in our kids and in the school community. So I'm really excited that Karen was able to come in as an interim principal this year. She is a retired principal, and we needed, during the time of COVID, to have all of our children and our staff in really good hands with Janine Marie and her counterpart. And I'm just so appreciative. Karen was made many offers for similar positions in other districts, but she chose Byram, so.
You can't say no to that.
You can, but I'm crying. So, and Peggy McInerney, as she said, had been the Coleman Hill principal for years. Then she came up to the district office and was the assistant to the superintendent. And then we had a principal retire from Wampus, and Peggy, being a K-5 curriculum coordinator, thought it was best that she goes back into a building to help continue to establish a K-5 continuum for our academics. So Peggy went to Wampus, and now Peggy will be coming here, and the Wampus assistant principal will be rising to a principal. We have a lot of succession planning in the district, although we are not myopic. We look outside, far and wide, for whoever would be the best person for the position here. So I'm really excited for the administrative team. Kelly and I are here to do the budget presentation today. It's just a very quick presentation, but to give you an overview of the budget, of how we develop that budget, and the programs that this budget supports. Besides, keeping in mind that we are a public school, we also have an education foundation, which is separate from Byram Hills, but is only about Byram Hills. And that education foundation, for decades, since 1994, I was here, right? It was like 1993 or 1994. They started, and they have transformed our school district through donations. So, for example, your children are going to enjoy an indoor play space. There is a play space downstairs that takes up the width of 3 classrooms, and it was a $125,000 donation from the Education Foundation. Why is that important? You know it's important. Take a few rainy days of your children inside without any outside activity. We need kids to play, and we've studied play here, and we recognize the importance of having them play. Last night, we were the proud recipients of another grant that we wrote to the Education Foundation, and we are going to have a 4,000 square foot patio up on the hill on that side of the building as an outdoor classroom space for kids and a greeting and meeting space. So if today were a nice day, we might meet you out on the patio instead. We have done a lot to these facilities. At Coleman Hill, we increased the size of the field over here. And for the first time since we increased that field, we see all of these little kids coming for soccer or any other sport that they're doing, and they stay right on the Coleman Hill campus. Parents come to greet them and take them over to the field, and they have practice. Just giving kids a sense of community for the school that they're in. The Education Foundation also redid our library space, amongst other things. And they take that generosity clear up to the high school. So at the high school, we have a 3-year program that we are renowned for. It's called Global Scholars. We created it here in Byram Hills. We had administrators who went to a Harvard think tank to develop this. They wanted a 3-year program for kids besides science research, where kids could get mentors, they could learn about world issues, and they can have an impact in the world. So the Education Foundation supported the beginning of that program, and now that program's been in full swing for a couple of years now. And this year at the high school, the Education Foundation paid so we could pilot an entrepreneurship program for our high school kids. So that is going to start next year, and it's a 2-year entrepreneurship program where we are getting community members to be mentors to kids who are entrepreneurial, either in ways of business or humanitarian effort, whatever the case may be. So we are a public school. People forget that sometimes because we don't seem to function like a public school, but we have great support from our community members to get that done. And as you'll see at the end of the slides, what I want for your incoming kindergarten children is that by the time they graduate, they have even more opportunities than our current high school kids. Keeping in mind that when the current seniors were in elementary school, no worries, we have kids, we have noise. When the current seniors were in elementary school, they didn't have Global Scholars. They didn't have an entrepreneurship program. They didn't have an indoor play space. They didn't have revamped libraries. They didn't have one-to-one technology, right, that has been afforded to us through the Education Foundation. So I will talk a little bit about our budget with Kelly Seibert. We have proposed, and May 17th is the budget vote. It's at the middle school from 6:30, right? 6:30 in the morning? Yes?
Yes.
Until 9 p.m. And I encourage you to go and cast your vote. I can't ask you how to vote. I mean, I would assume you would know what my thinking is, but I can't ask you, which is funny, right? So I do encourage you to go out and vote at Crittenden. We have a very interesting school district. We are a sleepy voting town. So even though we have about over 11,000 people who could potentially vote, we sometimes get like 450, 500 people who come out to vote. So this year, in addition to voting with the budget, we have 4 trustees on the Board of Education, 4 board members whose seats are up. The 4 current board members, the incumbents, are running for those seats again, and there are 3 additional people running for those seats. So we don't usually have that in Byram Hills. Usually, sometimes we have to knock on doors and ask people, can you give up part of your life and come be a board member? But this year we have 7 people who are going for those positions. So I encourage you to learn about them and to come and cast a vote. Our budget increase is a little over $1.6 million, or 1.78% budget to budget increase. I talked about everything that's included. We have so many athletic programs. I think we have 67 different athletic teams. We had this year 10 high school seniors who signed on to play sports in university. Now, one of them is going to Trinity Dublin to play lacrosse. We have tennis players, fencers. I mean, it runs the gamut, but for a school of our size to have 10 kids who are signed to go play sports in college is pretty spectacular. We have our own transportation department, and you're going to find that is really great, particularly when you are sending your kids to after-school activities. As they get older, we have an activity bus that actually picks kids up in the district and takes them to their different activities after school. That was something that the district had to do because otherwise your 5,000 cars were swarming the parking lot and we couldn't really manage the volume. So it was safer for children to get onto a bus and to go to another place. But as a parent, you're going to find that really helpful also when you're not jiggering your day to do that. And Kelly will talk, yeah, I know. Poor Kelly, last night we had a board meeting and I just took over and did the whole budget presentation and said to Kelly, thanks for coming. Go ahead, Kelly.
Which is fine. Just want to give you kind of a brief background of the budget. If you want to check the website and review the presentations, I go into a lot more detail, but this is kind of just a quick, easy, brief idea of the budget for next year. So just quickly, a school district is required to do their budget in 3 components: program, capital, administrative. The program is essentially everything associated with students. It's your teachers, psychologists, your bus drivers, your aides. And that's the salary, the benefits, equipment, supply, anything associated with them. That's 72% of our current budget. Capital is essentially taking care of our buildings, but it's also the staff. It's your custodial maintenance, your operations and groundskeepers, repairs and services to building improvements, as well as debt service, utilities, so everything associated with the facilities. So it kind of fits that category. And finally, administrative, everything that's supervisory, your assistant principals, your directors, legal costs, Board of Ed costs, budget vote costs, auditors, yeah, exactly, things to that nature. So everything kind of administrative kind of fits with the 3 component ideas, and that's 11.7%, which is pretty common year to year. That percentage really doesn't change much. In terms of actual categories of expenses, any school district, the majority of your expenses is associated with your staffing. So the salary and benefits make up about 78% of our total budget on a year-to-year basis. That's pretty consistent year to year. The second biggest category is contractual services, anything we can't do in-house, professional development, repairs we can't do internally, renting of lights for homecoming, or kind of those kind of examples. Anything we don't have and we need to get somewhere else, essentially. The last 4 categories: supplies and equipment at 2.6, debt service at 2.8, maintenance projects at almost 2%. The district maintains the facilities on a yearly basis. You'll see in the paper probably in the next couple of weeks about votes on a new roof at another school or a new boiler. We do that on a yearly basis within the budget, so we don't have that big payment towards the end, the big bond for the end of the year to replace a roof, replace a boiler, or do this and that. We maintain it on a yearly basis within the budget, so we don't have those big projects and we don't have that debt. We do currently have 1 debt service payment, 1 bond still on the books, and that
expires in 2025.
Yep.
And
that was
it was from 27 years ago.
Yeah, I always forget the
So
date.
we're still paying back a bond that was taken. That's okay, I want to we are still paying off that bond from 27 years ago. And I know one of my counterparts, a superintendent in another district, within the past few years, put out a $90 million bond because everything was in such disrepair in the school district that they needed $90 million to bring it up to where it needed to be. Fortunately, because we're doing that work on a consistent basis, we have our own carpenter, our own plumber, our own electrician, and we're keeping up with our capital improvements of roofs, as everything Kelly said, and we don't put ourselves in that position.
Yeah, we don't defer that maintenance. If we need to do a roof, we'll do a section of a roof a year, section of a roof, so it's not a complete replacement. Just an easier way, and not needing to borrow and pay that interest amount on a yearly basis. And then finally, vehicles at 0.6%. We do have a bus fleet, and we replace those buses on a yearly basis. We get between 10 and 15 years for our buses. So we've been using buses beyond their useful life, really maintaining them very well with our internal staff. But on a yearly basis, we do replace our buses just to ensure safety of our students.
And within the next 10 years,
yes,
we will be transitioning to electric buses.
Yeah.
That is a mandate of the state, and all school districts are preparing for that now. However, there are only 3 companies that sell electric buses, so I'm not sure how the 780 some odd school districts are going to.
It's about
buy for those
600,000 buses.
I don't know, remember the beginning of COVID when you were looking all over for that COVID test and you were driving around all night long? I think it's gonna be a little bit like that.
Yeah.
But
Well,
they're
hopefully-
coming,
Yes, and we'll study that and we'll be prepared for it.
yes.
So we talked about expenses, what we're spending, so how the revenue we're using to pay for those expenses. In the majority of Westchester County doesn't receive a lot of state aid. We receive 4%. So the majority of our revenue comes from our property taxes at 89%. You're going to see in the paper when they start discussing budgets in different school districts, you're going to see a lot of districts receive money, which is called foundation aid, a lot of it. About 6 or 7 years ago, Governor Patterson, the New York State was in a huge deficit, and he pulled money from every school district in order to balance the budget and make up that deficit. So it's fast forward to today, they're finally paying that back. New York State got a lot of money from the federal government, and they're paying back that foundation aid that they've taken over the last 8 years. Byram Hills was never in that category where they were, they took a lot of money from Byram Hills. We were
Because our taxpayers are paying our.
Yeah, because we're only,
Right.
I didn't want to say that. We're only at 4%.
No, yeah, it's true.
we're only
I
at
speak the truth.
We're only at 4%. It doesn't mean they're going to take away state aid from us, but we're receiving the minimum amount, which is a 3% increase for us, which is total $60,000 increase on a yearly basis. So you're going to see New Rochelle and Mount Vernon got 10, 11, $6 million. Ardsley got about $2 million. So you're going to see that in the paper, I'd imagine. So that just so you understand why Byram Hills didn't get that $2 million.
Yeah, and
That's
some
the reason.
communities are getting upset because they're saying, well, we got millions of dollars in foundation aid. Why are we even having an increase in our taxes? And I know of one district that reduced their budget to a 0% budget because of the resistance of the community to increasing the budget when they were receiving so much foundation aid. You're going to see all of that, or maybe not, but that's
Yeah.
not us.
And you probably see some huge budgets, like a Mount Vernon, maybe 7%. It's because they're getting that additional revenue. They have to put it in their budget somewhere, to pay it out. So that's why you're going to see those huge numbers in terms of budgets. And then pilot payments are 3%.
Oh, yeah.
Excuse me, 3%. We currently have 2 pilot payments. IBM and Ingle Berman are still on the books. So pilot payment is a company comes to the town or the county and wants to see a reduction or a flat value in terms of their taxes on a yearly basis. So they'll make an agreement with the town or county to have a pilot agreement for a set amount of period to pay a set amount based on their assessment. So they're not on the tax roll, subject to a tax rate basically every year. They have a flat or slightly increased decrease on a yearly basis over a 3 to 5 year period. So we currently have 2 of those in this area.
And it's nice to have those.
Yes, it is. And then,
Right?
yep.
Oh, state aid, well, you did all that, right?
Yeah,
Oh, you're doing it?
I guess. Remember last time, didn't we? And so these are the actual numbers in terms of it. Again, our total tax levy increase of 1.84%. Our maximum allowable tax levy is 2.5%. There's a long formula. I was going to say boring, but long formula, which I did a presentation in January about how you calculate it. It's not 2%. You'll hear that 2% tax cap a lot. The maximum allowable is 2.5 this year. So we're going below that maximum at 1.84%, which is an increase of about $1.5 million. The pilots, like I spoke about, there's a decrease in pilots. Our IBM pilot has a bit of a decrease on a yearly basis.
We don't control that.
Yep, we don't control. That's part of their agreement with the town or county. It's about a 3% decrease between Ingle Berman and IBM. Other revenue, about 10% increase. The county a couple of years ago increased the sales tax in Westchester by 1%. We benefited from that, and we've continue to benefit the last 2 years, so we've increased that assumption for next year in terms of revenue we're going to receive by additional $100,000. State aid, you see a decrease of 5.6%. Again, not because they're taking money away from us. We have debt service still on the books, so we have building projects that we're receiving state aid on. We expired one of our debt service payments 2 years ago, so we're receiving less aid because we're paying less. So it's not it's not a big decrease. It's just based on that. And then finally, fund balance and reserves. In order to balance the budget, we're going to put an additional $366,000 to balance the budget on the revenue side. Estimated tax rates. So if you check a presentation on March 29th, I gave a lot of detail and discussed a lot about the changes in assessed value and how that changes your rate on a yearly basis. Whether you're in North Castle, the shifting really takes place for the most part in North Castle and Mount Pleasant. In the last 3 years, the assessed value in North Castle has taken a huge decrease, whereas Mount Pleasant has been pretty consistent in terms of assessed value level, or increased just a little bit. So what that does, it kind of shifts the total share of the tax value from
So,
the tax.
can I do this in layman's terms?
I tried.
So, I know, no, you're ahead of all of us. So, if you live in Armonk, we have assessed values of homes. So we have 4 towns that are feeding into the Byram Hills School District. You have Armonk, you have Bedford, you have Pleasantville, and you have Chappaqua, right? So these 4 areas feed in, and they each have their own tax rates based upon assessed values of homes. That's not your market value. It's not what you can sell your house for, but your assessed value. So if you take Armonk, we have 85% of our homes are in Armonk right
About
now?
7,000 properties.
7,000 properties. So if there is a higher assessed value for Armonk then the increase is spread across that 85% of our tax base. But if you live in Mount Pleasant, and this is something that we saw for a couple of years, if you live in Pleasantville, we started seeing increases in Pleasantville even when we had a 0% budget to budget increase. And I'm saying, how are Pleasantville taxes going up when we're at a 0% budget to budget increase? And it was based upon the assessed values of homes in that town. Now it has shifted. So while Mount Pleasant saw an increase in taxes over a number of years, this year it is going to be a 0.4%. And we are now seeing, if you look at the history and the trajectory of this, we are now seeing a decrease in taxes in the Newcastle homes and the Bedford homes. The 2% for the North Castle is actually spread across all of the North Castle homes. So what is the actual amount of money that means to a North Castle taxpayer? It's $14 per thousand of assessed value. So it is not your market value, it's your assessed value, which is a much different configuration. So we watch this. I watch taxes in Byram Hills more closely than I watch my own. I am not kidding. I look at my taxes and I go, ugh, like again. My taxes right now are more than double what they were when I bought my home, right? And it just goes up and goes up and goes up. And quite frankly, I'm a little too busy to be paying attention to it. But I'm paying attention to your taxes because I have to see what is the impact on the taxpayer. And Kelly and I, have been proposing budgets to the board that do not go up to the tax cap. Because if we don't need to tax it right now, we don't want to tax it. And that has resulted in today's budget, which is over $96 million. Over the years, since 2012, we have been staying below the maximum of what we could, right? These are the dollar amounts that this has amounted to. So in the time that we've been watching taxes from 2012 until now, it has resulted in a $4.5 million less than what our taxes could be. I would be coming to you right now with taxes, proposing taxes that would be over $100 million. But we're not, because we're watching what do we need and when do we need it. And now we have a big enrollment growth. Yay, yay, yay. Kindergarten, 10 sections already, almost 11. I'm gonna have to spend so much more time here. But knowing that, we want to make sure that we are taxing what we need. If we continue to have these high enrollments in increasing years, we may have to one day go above the tax cap. That is unusual for districts. Districts try never to do it. Almost every other district will go right up to the tax cap. But I and Kelly and I, look at this amount and we say, why would we have burdened taxpayers with this if we didn't have to, right? So we're being careful with that money, but still giving all of the opportunities for our kids. And there's our enrollment growth. Continued. This is a demographer's report. So keeping in mind that these years where they're proposing these numbers, these kids aren't born yet. So it's really just an estimation.
And this is going to be higher next year too, at this point, right? Based on the kindergarten
it's higher
costs.
already. Every student K-11 will have opportunities afforded to our graduating seniors. This was the line that my predecessor used to use, and I keep it there because he and I always spoke about that's not true. We want more opportunities for our kids who are graduating seniors. Our seniors right now did not have all the things I told you that your children have, even in kindergarten, the one-to-one technology, they're coding these little Ozobots. They are, right, playing in indoor play spaces. They have so many more opportunities here right now, even as a kindergarten child, than our current seniors did. So that's our continued hope for the district. And the polls will be open on May 17th. I encourage you to vote. And you can reach out to Kelly Seibert if you have any questions about the budget. It is about the budget, and it's important that we give you these numbers and you start to become an informed voter. And you start to become informed about your taxes and how your tax dollars are spent and who's looking out for your tax dollars. No one in my town has ever presented how they're looking at my tax dollars, right? So, and I know, I just fell in love with my community and my street and my neighbors and whatever. So I'm just there for the duration. But it's something that I'm very conscious of. Here is a great picture of some of our seniors, and this will be coming home to you 7 days prior to the vote. You will also get a budget video sent to your homes. The budget video is me with the Board of Education President, Scott Levy, just talking about different parts of the budget. I think you got most of it today, but you can look at this information when you receive it also.
And if you want to obtain an absentee ballot, fear of contracting
Yeah.
COVID is still an option to get an absentee ballot. It's still a reason. So just on the district website, go to the Board of Ed, and there's a link for the absentee ballot. You just fill it out and submit it the same day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think it was not only about the budget, but really talking about the care that the district is putting into navigating your future kindergarten child all the way through to 12th grade, right? We know, I remember when my children were going to kindergarten, my first son was going to kindergarten, and I had a babysitter because I was always working, and my babysitter said, well, I went to the park today and I met this woman and she said that we have to get like a sleeping mat and this. I was like, what? Like, I didn't know any of that. And I remember just feeling like, am I missing anything? Like, what about the lunch and where is that? And did I get everything? And where should I be showing up? And you will receive tons of notification about everything related to your child. Our teachers are really approachable. So if you have any questions about your child or how they're doing, feel free to reach out to the teacher. We care about partnering with parents. I have tons of parents who have my cell phone number. They text me when something's happening over the weekend that I need to know about, right? Because we care about this community and we are in support of children and in support of parents and what parent needs are. It's not easy to be a parent, right? I mean, there's a lot that goes into that, and when kids are your children's ages, you just feel like you're never going to get out of that, right? Like, you know, that time where they start to be able to take a bath by themselves or shower by themselves or brush teeth by themselves. You're like, wow, I don't need a diaper bag, you know, like all of those rites of passage that you take as parents. Just know that we're here to support you through that. We do believe that you should have every understanding of how your child is in school. If you ever feel like you're worried, we have middle school parents who will call the principal and say, I think that my daughter may not be sitting with people at lunch, or I think, you know, she's coming home and she seems a little off lately. Can you just check in on her? We do that, right? We care about the whole child. We care to educate them well, and we care that they grow up and they care very much about Byram Hills. Today I met with 2 students who did something not so great. They had to meet with the superintendent, and you know, what they did was not really respecting our grounds. And so I had a conversation with them, and I told them, you know, what we're all about and why I care about our facilities and why they look so good for them. And it was just a great conversation. We tried to grow respectful and honorable youth, right? And to do that, we have to pull them into the fold and help them. So I hope that you had experienced or are experiencing SOS this week. Super fun for the kids to come in and you to come in and experience our schools. We did have some parents who, during the time of COVID, they were never in the schools. The schools were like a black box to them. So we're so happy to have you back here and in person. And I am also approachable. So you can always email me if you have any questions, you know, just about the community. Certainly get in touch with your principal and assistant principal. Our PTSA is really amazing if anybody wants to become a part of that. The Education Foundation will be hosting some events. They usually host an incoming kindergarten parent night. Last year they had it outside at the Modern Barn, where they just invite you to come and mingle with other kindergarten parents. A nice opportunity for you to meet the BHEF and to meet other people in the community. So if you are not so new to Byram Hills, thanks for continuing to have your children grow up here. And if you're new to Byram Hills, welcome. We're happy to have you. We can't wait to meet your little ones, which I will probably know by name within a month. No kidding. It's true. Kelly does too. During COVID, Kelly and I would come over and assist them with dismissal. because during COVID, we were deploying 240 cars as opposed to a typical like 50 or 60. And Kelly knew every kid in every car. So Kelly would call
Weird
out the
memory.
kid's name and like he'd notice the car like 8 cars down. Kids were all coming out. They were
Kids'
calling-
names I remember, adults I have trouble.
Yeah, they were calling him Mr. Kelly, you know. And we used to have a song, I say Mr., you
Oh,
say
jeez.
Kelly, and I would say Mr., and the kids would say Kelly. It was just, you know, it's a great school environment. So welcome, and thank you to our administrators who have made this just a pretty spectacular place.
Thank you. Thank you,
Awesome.
Kelly. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for coming.